Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our food and lifestyle photography live stream. This evening, we will be talking with Jean-Paul Urizar and Michaela Le Compte, who are a food and lifestyle photography duo. So I'll be your host, Sean Elwood. Hello, good evening. For those of you who are joining us again, thanks for tuning back in. You'll notice we've had a little bit of a date change. That was due to some unforeseen circumstances, but the stream is proceeding nonetheless. And we have I think it's going to be a really interesting live stream tonight. We are going to start out with a bit of a interview with Jean-Paul and Michaela, just talking a little bit about how they got into food and lifestyle photography. John Paul's shots are often featured on magazine covers. You've probably seen his work around. And it's going to be a really interesting insight into their work and I think into their career as well. So look, without further ado, I'm going to welcome them onto the stream. Hello, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Sean. How are you?
Nice to see
Really
you.
good. It's so weird to hear both of you chorusing at me like that. It's very intense.
We rehearsed.
We've been practicing
you.
all day.
Oh, it was worth it. It was worth it. Look, I guess why don't we begin by getting a little bit of background. I guess actually, sorry, before we do jump into that, I'll just say for everyone who's watching, do throw your questions in. I think part of the beauty of watching a live stream instead of a recorded interview is you can jump in and ask your questions. So as we go, by all means, chuck that up there. But JP, I guess, I've introduced you as a food and lifestyle photographer, but is that how you describe yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been shooting sort of food and lifestyle for over 20 years, Sean. So I definitely is my it's my genre. So shooting food and lifestyle is pretty much food and lifestyle is my main
Getting into portraits.
Yeah, portraiture and homes but food and lifestyle is definitely my thing.
Mm-hmm. And so, I think people sort of immediately understand what food photography entails, but you talk about lifestyle. What's in that?
Well, I guess when we say lifestyle, there's that crossover between, yes, you have that traditional food sort of photograph, but lifestyle then it incorporates into models. It's on locations. It's not just traditional tabletop types food shots. So it's a bit more in context, and it's a little bit looser in its approach. Yeah, that would be a good definition of lifestyle photography.
Great. So this will come as a shock to everyone watching, but you are a Sony shooter. What do you shoot on at the moment?
Well, I started shooting on the Sony, the A7R II when it came out. How many years is that now, Sean?
Oh, come on, don't put me on the spot like this, JP. It's, I guess that would be getting on 6 years now, probably, since launch.
Yeah, so...
5, 6 years.
I started with that particular camera, and it was the perfect camera for me at that time when I needed to make the transition, and it just offered so many sort of features that I needed at the time, and so I still have that, which is great because I still need to output large format files for clients, which require, high res images, and also have the A7 III Mark. Is it the A7 III? Yeah.
Yep. A7 Mark III. Yep.
A7 Mark III. Beg your pardon. And that's just a great camera. Really manageable size, file sizes, and it's got a nice picture profiles. I think they've changed a bit of the color science between the A7R2 to 3. And yeah, it's a really nice camera that I've been using, and we'll show quite a few images with that particular camera.
So for your food work, you still shoot primarily on the R, or do you shoot both now?
I use both, mate, because I find that for some projects where we are doing food and video that the A7 Mark III really lends itself in that respect, to be able to have that transition between the two. I've shot quite a few, actually a TV commercial, and at the same time I'd shoot stills. So it had a real seamless synergy between the two. And for the A7 R2, I should say, the R2, I use that when I'm doing packaging and the client needs high res files and bigger files that they can zoom in and see all that extra detail. So that's how I use my two different systems. So and then obviously when you use that larger sense, the larger megapixels, it just gives you a little bit more breathing space for that type of advertising style work that I do.
Yeah, and you're doing a lot of work where you're sort of working with the client. You might need to crop around, that sort of stuff, right? So
exactly.
I assume it gives you a bit more latitude there.
That's right, mate. So in this modern day and age, we need to get multiple crops out of shot. So we need to get a square crop, a vertical a crop, portrait, horizontal. So having that larger sensor really, not the larger sensor, but the more megapixels really helps. And so yeah, it's a nice way to work.
Yeah, brilliant. We've got a question from the chat just saying, have you ever missed an amazing shot because you were in shock about what was happening in front of you?
Have I missed an amazing shot?
Maybe with a souffle or something.
Yeah, actually, you know what, mate? That's a whoever asked that question, it's a really good point. Then souffles are notorious for the window is so small. So by the time it comes out of the oven, you're on set, you've got everything set up, ready to go. And then usually what tends to happen, the stylist or the photo chef, it's like you have to do a pour into the souffle, so you've got to dust it, and the thing is literally just shrinking on set. So you're going like hurry, you've got to get this done quickly. And it's really interesting when you play back your session, you can see the souffle going from this to this to this to this to this. So souffle is probably the Achilles for a food photographer. You got to be really quick and have everything all sorted.
Souffles, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was going to save this question for the back end of the interview, but since we're here now, I mean, there's lots of, those urban rumors about different additives and stuff that gets thrown in for food photography. I mean, have you guys used those weird tricks? Or do you...
Sean.
You jumped in early.
Do you know, I think we used to use a lot more. Like, I think, especially in advertising, it was a lot more sort of manipulated back in kind of like, I'm talking film days where, things had to look shiny. Would you agree? Like, you get the hairspray out and do awful things like that. But now, and you
have a roast chicken, which was actually a raw chicken, which has been basted and painted and so forth.
With bonops or something. But now I think, Photoshop, all these programs have come a long way, haven't they? That I can sort of go, look, I can't achieve that now. Yeah. Can you do it?
And also, true. And also I think the medium's changed a little bit in how we approach things. There's a real sense of having things look fresh and alive, and especially with Insta and so forth, you kind of need to do it correctly, and it always looks better. But do you
remember there were a couple of laws that came in, and there was that truth in advertising, and all that stuff had to go. It was all like, you're not allowed to do it anymore, So.
Oh, really?
I will share this one.
It's made our life easier.
I will share this one story, which Michaela probably hates sharing. But there is the famous tampon.
I've actually never done it.
I've used it twice on a shoot where
you don't need to. Well, anyway, you don't need to do it anymore.
Where we needed to get. There was a moment where we had to take a photograph, and it was like the reveal, and then we needed the steam. And you only have a small window of time to do that particular shot. So we had a few goes, and then we actually had to do the tampon with the water and have that behind the actual pot, so we would get that moment, that effect. So
But now, I mean,
So what's the trick? Sorry, for the guys in the cheap seats, because I don't know either. What is the trick? How do you make it work? What's it do?
Well, apparently the theory is in a teacup where it's concealed behind something, because it absorbs, and then it just lets this steam waft up. But
it absorbs all the hot water, and then it gives you that that little bit of that.
It lasts. Doesn't it?
You get a little bit more out of it because of the absorption method that the tampon uses.
But now you just Photoshop that in. You go, I need steam. That's fun in post.
Got it. Fix it in post. That's the age we live in.
No more tampons in my kit.
I'm sure not a tear was shed. Okay, well, look, I was going to ask about how long you've been doing photography professionally, but you've sort of answered that. So I'll ask instead, like, how did you come into photography, JP? Like, did you sort of start out, did you just go in on your own, or did you apprentice?
Well, I won't. I know we have a bit of time tonight, but I'll keep it short. Essentially, I was given a camera by my uncle at the age of, I think, 8 or 9, and I just loved the whole process of the camera and the field of view and the world that I could see through that camera, and I truly got lost in that moment. It was something that was just really. It will always stay with me, and as a result of discovering photography as quite young like that, I developed, I did it at school, and then I went on to university. I have a BA in design, majoring in photography, and like most, I don't know if it's the case anymore, but I started assisting photographers, and I had a full-time job as an assistant. And then I made the transition from assisting to photography, and I've never looked back. It's been an amazing career. I've been able to travel with work, and I've seen many things. And through this career, I've met my beautiful wife. Not
wearing my wedding ring.
No, nor am I. Actually, it's weird. Look, it's been an amazing journey, and what I love about photography is that there's always something to learn. When you think, I never get to that situation where I think I know everything, because I'm always learning and always pushing myself to know more and grow, and as a result, then you can offer your clients more. Look, I love what I do, and been doing it for over 25 years. So I feel really blessed to be able to still be doing it and loving it.
I think it's different though now, isn't it, for people getting into the industry? I don't think it's the same.
I think you're right. I think the way now is very different from the way I started. Did
you have an Instagram when you started out?
Sean.
I had a medium format camera, Sean, and I shot transparency.
We had portfolios.
Actually, speaking of,
I don't know what that is.
we had printed portfolios, Sean, and our agents would have to send those portfolios out to all the ad agencies, and it's just it's a different world now.
Well, for anyone who's interested, we do have your Instagrams featured in the details for this video, so
thank you.
Check those out. JP, what was your first published image?
Oh, this is, I do remember. I was working, it was my very first job, and I was freaking out. And normally on a shoot you get one day, but on this particular day, the stylist and I, because we knew each other and we were both starting together at the same time, it took us 2 days to do the shoot, and just it was I still remember it. We did a shoot for Australian Good Taste, which morphed into Taste now, and that's what sticks to mind, is the fact that it took 2 days as opposed to one, and they were wrapped. They were really happy with that, and that sort of really led my direction and path into food, because at that time I was shooting a lot of fashion and portraiture and assisting a lot of fashion photographers, and it was just a different scene compared to the food industry, and from a food industry that I just found that the people were just, I don't know, a little bit, I guess, more genuine. Really, it would be a good way to describe it. And I just clicked. I clicked more with those sorts of people, and so I just decided, well, I really like that journey and that path where I'm going. So and it just snowballed. It just continued from one client to the next, and I think Michaela's very first job was for Vogue Entertaining, so that was quite interesting.
I know. Talk about starting at the top.
What was your first dish you saw in print?
My first dish?
Michaela.
Oh, mine. Well, it was probably that, wasn't it? I think it was an advertorial. I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like an apple pie or something with artificial sweetener or something. The thing, you have to put your morals at the door and say, well, I wouldn't eat that personally, but
you don't picture the rotted teeth next to the Twinkie. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we've got a few questions from the people watching, so I'll throw those up. Here we go. Carrie asks, for Michaela, how many styling props do you own?
Oh, good question, Carrie. JP could probably wade into that one, but
too many, Carrie.
It's all a transition, because when I first started, 20 years ago, there were no prop houses. Do you remember?
Yes.
And so you had to either beg, borrow, and steal from a shop, or you had to buy props and have this enormous room. I had a whole room full of props. Do you remember?
Yes.
Cupboards and cupboards.
Yeah.
And material and all sorts of strange things. And then over time, the budgets got a little bit better in magazines and advertising, and then the prop houses started. So there were about 3 or 4 in Sydney, and we're sort of down to about 2 now. And they're massive warehouses, and
so many choices and options.
They make backgrounds and they have vintage pieces, and it's all color coded, and it's like a toy shop for a food stylist.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of an elaborate.
It's just so good. And then the beauty is that they're constantly updating, buying new things, so you don't have to. And then over time, mine has shrunk, and it's probably like 4 little cubes now.
Yeah, I said, Michaela, we need to get this smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, so it's good, because you get sick of using your own things.
You do.
And you don't want that same look. So, and each brief is different. So it's nice to...
I remember when stylists used to have their yearly... end of year prop sale. So stylists, all the stylists in Sydney would sell all their props, because they got so sick and tired of using their own props all the time. At the end of each year, they would sell them, and then other stylists would buy them, and then there would just be these props that are traveling all over Sydney between everyone else.
And the funny thing is, which reminds me, we all had station wagons.
Yes.
Because we all had to transport, maybe backgrounds and maybe 10 boxes for a shoot. And now, because you don't really, I take one bag with me, which is like all my little, tweezers and all those little things, and everything else gets couriered. So
do you think the rate of pace, the pace of change in the way stuff is styled visually has picked up as a result of that? Because people have suddenly got all this extra stuff to draw on, does it mean that now the fashion can change on the drop of a hat?
Definitely. Yeah. It's opened it up, definitely. But it's funny, because when we first started, everything was really simple. It was just a plate, that was the style back then, after having come from very busy. And then as time goes on, it gets really busy. There's no negative space. And then now it's all going back to really simple again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And then I think
it's all about the light.
It's all about lighting now, Sean. I just noticed a question came up earlier.
We'll jump back into that in a second. Oh, well, actually, there you go.
Yeah, there it is. So
what's your go-to lighting, natural light or strobe?
I'm going to give away a few secrets here, but I actually like combining both. I think that's the key. If you can combine both together in a shot. There are times where you need to have full control, and you can control your shadows, the length of your shadows. We've got some examples that we can go through later on, and the types of lighting. So from HMI, which is like a continuous light, which is a daylight balance light, to strobe, which is flash lighting, and daylight. I have a north-facing studio for all my food shoots, so I'm really blessed with amazing daylight. But I think it's how you control your lighting is what sort of makes your work stand out. On Insta, you see a lot of beautiful daylight shots, and with heavily filtrations, and they look good, they look great. But it's you throw that person in a situation where they don't have that control, and they need to create that. It's
that consistency.
It's having been able to control your light and change your light as required. So there are some shoots that I have to do, especially for cookbooks, and we're shooting seasonal books. So within the one day, I have to shoot moody, wintry light. I have to shoot bright, summery, spring kind of light. So you need to be able to switch it up and be able to know what you need to do to be able to make that happen. To be able to switch it around.
Why don't we jump into looking at some pictures now, that since we're sort of in the neighborhood of talking about light and that sort of thing. Can you throw some stuff up for us? And
yeah,
we'll have a bit of a...
I'll quickly just start a screen share, and we can go through those. Bear with me.
Come back to a few more questions a little bit later in the piece.
Okay, so that's interesting. All right, I'll open a session. Actually, 1 second, mate.
Just got a nice compliment from the chat, so that's lovely.
Okay. So this is are you seeing that, Sean? Are you seeing?
It's up live now.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so this is a project that Michaela and I did recently, quite recently actually, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where we had to shoot different seasons. And this is my session, so you sort of can see how sometimes we build a shot up. I'll just start the process. 1 second. I'll give you an example of how a shot gets.
Maybe the sandwiches.
The sandwiches? Yeah, okay. Bear with me, Sean.
No, you're right. I'm already enjoying seeing these thumbnails.
Yeah, they're flying through.
So I was going to ask this in the the context, but since we're here, so what are you looking in here? What software is this?
Okay, so I'll get rid of this overlay for a sec. So I basically use Capture One as my editing, capturing software, and it enables me to shoot tethered. I love shooting tethered. It just especially when having clients, I can make all my adjustments very quickly on the fly, and it's a lot easier for me to work that way. And what I'm going to show you guys now is just the process of how it sort of starts. So you saw the actual end shot, but we'll just scroll through. It's just so now we're just sort of building the shot up, Michaela and I. So you can see Michaela's hands. The exposure is way too hot. Adjusting the exposure, composition. Start getting the overlay in. So now we know what the overlay looks like, the amount of space that we need. We need to make some adjustments. We're moving things around. Michaela starts adding more props. We need the cutleries. We need to work out where it needs to go, so it breaks in the gutter.
Because this is a DPS.
This is a double page spread. So it's so you can see where we're going to have our gutter is there.
We try not to have the main food going through the gutter.
That's right. So so we're just going through making adjustments and until we get to, and obviously a piece cut out, and we always give the client an option with and without.
Yeah. We always shoot it whole first in case it doesn't work.
It's often hard to put them back together afterwards.
Yeah.
Photoshop.
So that's just one example that shows you, the process that you have to go through to kind of the start to finish for a shot.
Just come back to one of those early ones. Like, when you've taken one of these first frames, what's the conversation that's happening at that point? You've kind of you've tossed it in, you've taken a shot. At this point, you're thinking what? Like,
well, JP's only thinking really light, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking composition, but you're looking at different things, aren't you?
I'm looking at different things. I'm looking at the look and feel, the mood that I need to create, how it fits into the layout that I'm needing to work in, all those sorts of things. Sorry, Sean. And so they're the sorts of things that I'm looking, how much space I need. So, I'm obviously too tight. I've got too much space on the left-hand side of that tart. So I need to shift over like so to give my client the amount of copy space that they need.
Because we always say, well, they could crop into it, but you don't really want that, do you?
Yeah, so this is a good example, Sean. I know I'm pulled back on from what you guys can see, but that's the actual crop. But what I'm actually capturing is all of that. So I'm capturing all of that. And you can see my crop lines. Sorry, let me unconstrain that. So you can see my image area for my crop is that. So that's the sort of bleed I give my clients to give the finished image, which is about so.
Right. So when you're shooting, you're not just thinking, I'm going to capture the final thing that people will see. Like you've always got in mind, all right, well, this is going to press, so I need bleed and I need.
Correct, Sean. So yeah, so that's really important that I always have to give bleed because you don't want to be in a situation where you don't have that information.
And some clients like the food to be a lot bigger in the shot, but some like it really pulled back. So you don't want to shoot too in and then they've got nowhere to go. It's better if they can crop in.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a few examples, and I can we can open up another session of different files so you can see.
Yeah, great.
Maybe it's selected.
Yeah, I'll have a look at this one here. Now, I think I need to. Are you seeing that, Sean? Do I need to change something?
It's going to vanish for a moment, so I'm going to go back to asking some questions while you guys do that. Maybe I might ask a question for Michaela. How did you go from being a chef into being specifically a photo chef?
So I did my apprenticeship. I worked in restaurants. I went overseas with cooking and loved it. But it just became that whole, it's the same, it was Groundhog Day. It was going into the one restaurant, one team, same menu. And I just got, I wanted to use my food. I'd been doing it for maybe 6 or 7 years and I just got sick of just doing the same thing. And then, my flatmate at the time was working at, I think it was Murdoch Books.
Yes.
Murdoch Books or Murdoch Magazines. And she knew Donna Hay. And so she just gave me her phone number and I didn't really, this is back in the 90s and I didn't really know anything about food photography. And she said, give it a go, move into still doing food, but for magazines and books. And I thought, okay, I can always go back, so I did it and I just loved it. And then once I'd started cooking for photography, I knew that I wanted to be styling for photography. So it wasn't long until, I started to get my own folio together, shooting, in those days you would shoot with an assistant, a photographic assistant. And then, within a year I was shooting. And then I think I met JP and so, it was good. It was a good journey. Yeah.
I know I'm not the one being interviewed here, but funny story. We actually did a little product demo for Rupert Murdoch a little while back, and yeah, it was good fun. When we just announced one of our new cameras, I want to say maybe the R Mark IV, and he wanted to have a look at it, and we took it over there and he had a look. He's very into his photography, as it turns out. So there you go.
There you go.
Random funny story. I know I'm not the one being interviewed, but I just I
No.
wanted to share. I feel so jealous. Anyway, I think JP's got some stuff up here, so let's have a look.
Yeah, so this is what we're sort of talking about. This is for a shoot that Michaela and I did for Selector magazine, and this is utilizing HMI lighting. So again, it's a summery peach story. So we wanted to
Guys,
really play with.
I'm so sorry. I have to walk it all back. I got the wrong famous media mogul. It wasn't Rupert Murdoch. It was Kerry Stokes.
It was Kerry Stokes, wasn't it?
That's it. I'm leaving the stream. Good luck. Goodbye. I'm back. All right. Anyway, back to your pictures.
That's okay, mate. So yeah, it was a summer story, and we just had to get that really bright, crispy sort of light with the long shadows and
I think because the backgrounds were both so flat and they were just painted, which is what they wanted, without those beautiful deep shadows, it just would have been really boring.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through a few other images so you can see. Just this is the same story. You can sort of see what we were trying to do with the lighting, and it's just it's a nice sort of high key HMI to get those nice shadows, and it just makes the food just pops off the page. And I think we will actually use the Sony A7 R Mark IV, which were huge files.
Oh yeah.
They were, I think they're 172 meg files.
If you're shooting uncompressed, they would be, yeah.
So
I remember because I've seen these images before, and I'm sure it was when you were trialing the R Mark IV with us.
That's right. So when we did these on this, the Sony awards night. I'll just quickly go through some of these images. Are you seeing these changes, Sean, as I'm flicking through?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll start from the top. So basically, shoot a whole range of different things, from seasonal things to chefs, restaurants, a whole range of different things. So we'll just go through some of these images quite quickly. And if people have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. You're seeing images without. They're not in layout, so there's a lot of copy that goes into these sorts of images. So,
John, do you want to just I was going to say, if you just want to punch in on one of these, that'd be great, just to see some of the.
Yep. So we can have a look at that. So again, combination of using flash to capture the freezing of the icing sugar and so forth.
For a shot like this, would you ever, shoot the sugar as one plate and then just like drop it in on the rest, or do you always try and get it in camera?
Look, what I try and do, Sean, is I try and get as much as I can in camera, and like anything, time is of the essence. So if I don't need to do different, if I've got more time on an ad shoot, then we shoot all different plates. We'll shoot a plate for the background only, a plate which is out of focus, in focus, and then we'll shoot the food on different focal planes, so we can decide, or the agency can decide how much depth of field they want to see, how much focus they want to put on a product. So But when we're shooting editorially and a little bit looser like this, we try and keep it, what you're seeing is what you're actually capturing. So that's usually the way we work on these particular files. So this was a shoot that we did for Helga's Bread. Again, this is an ad shoot, so we need to leave a lot of space for all the copy and blurb. So again, it's all about freshness. It's just making the bread look nice and light and healthy and so forth. Just keep going. And then it can get as elaborate. And again, this is controlling your lighting. So you basically want the food just to pop out and just sing off the page. That's my role, is to really make the images really pop and stand out.
I ate dinner before I came on stream specifically because I knew I'd be looking at food pictures. I'm still kind of salivating.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. Again, so it's just being able to control your light, and I think that's the key to a successful food photographer. If you can control your lighting, and
because I can have like the most beautiful props and do the most wonderful job, and without a fantastic photographer, and because I am freelance, I do work with other photographers.
Yes, and I shoot with other stylists as well. You can't do their job for them, and you struggle, don't you? When if the lighting's not right, or even just like the depth of field, or they don't have a shift tilt, and you need to have lots of things in focus. I can't do their job, so I'm limited by how good the photographer is, and vice versa, obviously. So look, I think if you can master your craft, then you can, I guess, offer your clients all of it, really. And I think that's the key.
You
really
kind of problem solve, don't you? Along the way.
I think essentially you're a creative problem solver. So you have your brief, you know what you need to achieve, and the client is they're sort of handing over that responsibility to you, and you need to put together a team to be able to, I guess, make that vision happen.
Because sometimes you can have pre-production meeting after pre-production meeting, but it's not until they get there and they visually see it and they ask you, well, can you do this, that you can actually show them.
Yeah, that's right.
That's brilliant. I'm just seeing if we have any questions in chat to take a look at. I was going to ask you, JP. You've been doing this for a while now. What piece of technology has made the biggest difference to the way that you work over your career?
I guess, without sounding so obvious, I think it's, from my point of view, the transition from film to digital has been the biggest. Coming from film, where you'd shoot a lot less, and essentially you shoot a Polaroid, and you'd have to wait your 2 minutes while your food's changing and dying, and then you'd peel the Polaroid, and it's like, okay,
we need to make a change.
We're good to go, but we need to change it, and then it would just be a very slow, laborious sort of day. But the transition from shooting digital has really transformed the way we work, and to be honest, it's got its pluses and it's got its negatives as well. Because everyone's a photographer now if you pull out your iPhone and so forth, but that's a conversation for another time.
But they expect it, don't they?
Yes.
They expect it the next day.
Yeah, so there's this turnaround that clients have this expectation where, right, well, when can I have the files? And I think the key is to be able to do your post-production. I call it post-production, but I'm actually doing it live on my shoot. So as we showed earlier on my sessions, I'll just go back to one, but on the sessions where I can basically make all my changes on the fly, and it gives me the ability to just get it right in camera and right there for the client, so we can make those changes and do those tweaks right there and then, and then that image is done. I don't need to send that off to Photoshop and do a little bit more to it. It's pretty much as it comes out of Capture One, then it goes.
And actually, if you went and did a bunch of work in Photoshop afterwards, they'd probably be like, "What are you doing? We agreed. We're done."
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. Yeah. So it's I guess digital. But if I was to be specific in regards to digital, some of the things that have really, the technology that's really has really helped me is some of the technology that I'm utilizing with the Sony in regards to, the eye tracking and all that sort of stuff for portraits. That sort of stuff, I couldn't do previously, and it just makes my job so much easier. And I can really concentrate on my subject, and I don't need to, basically I can direct my subject. Can I share the portrait I shot of Ken Doan? It won't be a sec, but essentially it's a good analogy of what I was referring to, and I'll just share that. 1 second. Not that one. Okay, I'll allow that. And let me just go back to this. Where are you?
Just up a bit. Yeah.
There you go. So this is a portrait of obviously Ken Doan for Australian House and Garden, and he was a bit time poor, and he was dressed in, I guess, he had that quintessential stripe shirt and all that sort of stuff, and which is like more of his signature, and the ability to be able to just not worry about the technology in regards to, especially eye autofocus. I could just really concentrate and direct Ken as I wanted him to be, and it loosened him up. And so, that one bit of technology just made the difference for me in regards to how I interact with my subjects, really. It just gives me more confidence to know that I can take that picture and I'm sort of not necessarily having to look through the camera and changing focus and so forth. I can just keep him tracked, and then I'm just sort of looking at him off camera, and just sort of then we're talking and we're shooting, and it feels a lot more organic, and it feels more personable that way rather than my head stuck behind the camera. So that's one bit of a technology that's just been amazing for me.
Brilliant. I think we just have a few questions from the chat, so I'll throw those up now. Craig has asked, I see one of your Insta shots, you're hand holding the camera for a flat lay. Do you also use an overhead setup?
I do. I think that photo that Craig's referring to was a photo specifically for Insta. You don't, I think there's a lot of showmanship in that particular photo. If it's the photo that I think he's referring to. But yeah, look, overhead shots, flat lay type shots. Yeah, look, I have the camera locked off, because what tends to happen is that if you need to create an animation and so forth with your flat lays, then you can't be hand holding that, because nothing's going to stay true when you animate your sequences of files. So yes, definitely overhead. I'm quite blessed. In the studio, I have a large, I think it's a 2.2 meter. Yes, that's the one. It's a lot of showmanship in that particular photo. But yeah, look, I do have a large overhead tripod, studio stand, I should say. But, in that particular instance, for that photo, I actually was taking pictures that high up, because we were shooting in the studio, and Joe was having to work at that height, and I just needed to be high. So in that instance, yes, I managed to be able to do it like that. But if it didn't need to be as loose and I had to be locked off, then obviously, I would be locked off.
There's no health and safety.
No health and safety on that one, no.
And Kerry asks, I love your food shots, JP. How long do you typically spend shooting one food subject?
Good question.
Is Kerry referring to how long I would spend shooting one recipe?
One shot.
One shot?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is the other issue that we have now with digital, is that there's not necessarily just one shot that you have to cover. You have to cover several shots of the one. So you have to cover the image, whole, cut, served, vertical, horizontal. You have to change your angles as well. So it could take half an hour to an hour. But that's just there's also the setup time to get to that as well. So, and then there's obviously that conversation and dialogue to get to that. So in an average day, you could be shooting anywhere between 8 to 10 images a day on as an average, if that helps Kerry. But thank you, Kerry, for your comments.
That's great. Complete Men TV asks, would you recommend the industry for a career path? I imagine it would be very competitive.
Yes, it is very competitive.
It is now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess going back to that question earlier where, I think I mentioned it, where photography has become very accessible, which is great for lots of people. I'm going to get political here, but the craft of photography is what sometimes is missing, and understanding principles of photography. A lot of people know to take a pretty picture, but it's just understanding how you got there and how you need to change things to fulfill a brief and so forth. So you can have a certain style. So yeah, look, I think it's always good to have a good understanding. So, traditional education in photography, I think it always helps.
But I think it is a good industry.
It is. It's a great industry.
I would definitely recommend it.
It's a great industry. You meet so many people, and
really flexible.
Yeah, it's flexible, and you get to travel with it, and yeah, look, it's been great for me.
You work with some really incredible equipment manufacturers as well, I've heard.
Work with some credible manufacturers. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Partnerships.
Yeah.
We got there in the end.
Yeah.
Penny Eats asks, hey, JP, what's your favorite lens for shooting food?
That's a really good question. I have two go-to lenses. So I really like the 50 for certain looks. It's just because it has that sort of natural field of view for what the eye sees, and you can get really close on a 50 as well. But if I had to pick one lens for a food shooter, I would say it would be the 85. There's something about the 85 for food. It's just got this really nice fall off, and I own the GM series. The is it 1.4, Sean? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, an 85 1.4, and it's just got some incredible bokeh. I know that's a term that gets thrown around all the time, but it's if you want to really isolate your subject, then the 85 is your go-to lens. It's a really nice kitted, nice lens to use for food.
Brilliant. Steve Locke asks, for your interiors, do you use a tilt shift?
I do. I do. And yeah, I do.
It's okay. You can say who makes the lens. It's fine.
I do.
Get weird about it.
I use the 24 and I use the 50. They're
handy, aren't they?
They are handy.
Very handy.
Yeah, so I do. So especially I shoot a lot of kitchens for Freedom Kitchens, and so with a shift tilt, it gives you the ability to. They need to sell bench tops and so forth. So, but also they need everything locked off, and you have your lines, your perspective lines all correct. So a shift lens or shift tilt, it gives you the ability to be up a little bit higher, so you can see the bench top, and then you can just shift down to recompose, and everything stays true. And look, I prefer using a shift tilt lens over manipulating it in Photoshop. It's just not quite the same in Photoshop, and obviously you lose a lot of the image area by doing it in Photoshop as well. So you need to shoot a lot wider if you're going to use it in Photoshop, not having a shift tilt lens. And I prefer to do it the traditional way.
Also makes sense for the way that you work, right? Because so much of it's about getting it right in camera and having that consensus with the client.
Yeah,
and if you don't need to take every image into Photoshop and edit it, you can get there.
My client is standing right next to me, so they say, look, we need to see a bit more of that bench and so forth. So, it just
makes you look professional.
Yeah. When are they releasing a shift tilt anyway?
Kill the stream. I wish I knew. No, RYZ Photo asks, have you ever destroyed a camera while shooting food?
I haven't destroyed a camera. I've had things fall on the lens, like sauce and things like that, but I've never.
You haven't dropped.
I've pride myself on, like, I'm really anal about my gear and so forth. So actually, you know what? I've those Manfrotto clips, when you clip it into the tripod, I thought I had it in, and I managed to catch it as it didn't connect in, and I managed to catch the camera. So that's as close as I've had in regards to that. So I haven't had a drop, which is good.
Sounds like a heart and mouth moment.
It was. It really was.
Simon Pollock asks, do you recall a big gotcha moment on set, and how did you work around it? Were there clients there? How did you deal with it? Any big?
A gotcha moment. Does he mean like a euphoric moment where it's like, oh, that looks amazing, or is he
maybe like a big obstacle that was dropped in your path?
Okay. Well, see, this is the as we're problem solvers, so I've never actually had a situation where I haven't been able to do it. I know that sounds really stupid. Look, sometimes I go to the extent of, if we need window light, then, I actually have a window frame that we can use that has the window pane. So when I shaft light through it, it looks real, it looks right. It doesn't feel forced or fake. So, but a gotcha moment. I
don't think so.
No, I don't. I haven't had one, Simon. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all good.
I know. Touch wood.
We'll come back next week. We'll see if you found any issues. Guys, like I think we've just about hit the end. Thank you so much for coming on stream, guys. It's been a real pleasure as always.
Thank you, Sean, for having us. It's been a lot of fun, and
it was good
to be able to share just a little bit of insight, and into our world and what we do, and so if someone gets something out of it, that's great.
I just killed my mic.
You did.
Guys, just a couple more things for people on stream. For our stream next week, we're going to have Mark Gaylor back on stream, and we're going to be talking about common misconceptions, technical bits and bobs, that sort of thing. And we're going to be running a competition. So if you would like to enter, Mark's asked for pictures shot in a doorway using natural light. So get your portrait lens out, get your kit ready, find someone who's willing to pose for you, and shoot yourself a nice natural light portrait in a doorway. and submit that via Instagram. So just fire it off at Sony Alpha ANZ. We'll put the details in the description, and entries will close on Sunday. So get your shot in by Sunday midnight, and we will get Mark to judge the winner on stream, and whoever wins gets $200 worth of Sony kit. So nice, easy to enter competition there. That is it, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Thanks again to JP and Michaela. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Sean.
We'll see you next